Hey everybody, welcome to the GMI Rocket Show. Today is episode number 123. 123. I am your host, Roman Zelichenko. I'm a former immigration attorney turned entrepreneur. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Laborless, which automates H-1B visa compliance, and also the founder of GMI Rocket, which is a digital marketing agency for the immigration industry, and of course, which brings you this show. I am really excited for today's episode. We have a returning guest, a person who's become basically just a friend of mine, Nadine Heitz, who is the CEO and co-founder of a company called CaseFlow. So Nadine is currently practicing immigration lawyer. She didn't leave the practice like I did. She's still doing amazing work based down in Florida. And, over the years has become an expert in a variety of things with regards to immigration tech. So she started a Facebook group, which we're going to talk about, which is, I would argue, the Facebook group for anybody who's in the practice of immigration law, who wants to kind of keep up to date with it and meet other immigration folks who are tech savvy and ask good questions. She coaches folks, immigration lawyers, on various tech they can use for their law practice. And now, as the CEO and co-founder of a company called CaseFlow, which is basically a case management system that's built on top of Monday.com. Super interesting, very different from what's out there. So I'm excited to get into the episode and learn about it. Before we do that, I do just want to say thank you to the main sponsor of the show, DocketWise. For those of you who may not know DocketWise, they are an immigration case management system that's all in one. They have really great immigration forms, best-in-class immigration forms, really customizable questionnaires. That was one of their that's their bread and butter in a lot of different languages, integrations with all sorts of apps, including Laborless, which is always exciting for me. Really great customer service. They've been around for a number of years. They also create a lot of great content for the industry. They have webinars. They have a podcast now. They have an ebook. They do put on a lot of great events and sponsor things like this show. So I really recommend folks, if you're in the market for an immigration case management platform, or maybe just want to learn more about them, check out DocketWise. There's a link in the show notes, or just go to www.docketwise.com and tell them that you heard about them from the GMI Rocket Show. Okay, long intro, but with that, Nadine, thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to have episode number 2, part 2 with you.
Thank you, Roman. It's great to see you and talk with you as well.
It's kind of it's like a public catch up. You know what I mean? We're going to catch up, and I get to learn about what you're working on, and so does everybody else. I do recommend for folks who, want to learn more about your background. We'll dig into it a little bit here, but I recommend going and watching your, the first episode that we did together, which was a few years ago. I'll add a link to it in the comments or the show notes when we're done here. But if we can we talk a little bit about you, like a little bit of the background? You're an immigration lawyer. You're based in Florida. You're from Canada, so you had your own immigration journey. So can we back up a little bit, just kind of to that space, and talk a little bit about maybe your journey from Canada to the U.S. and how you got into the practice of immigration law?
Okay, sure. Yeah. It's kind of strange how things work in life, right? I mean, I never thought I would be even an attorney. In Canada, I had a different career totally, which was in retail management and marketing and advertising for Canada's largest department store at that time, which was called Eaton's. And I kind of had a really good career there, but then Eaton's closed. They went bankrupt, department stores kind of went downhill, right? And I was, finding myself with, okay, what am I going to do now? We were already traveling as visitors to Florida. We loved Florida. We loved the sunshine, right? We were living in Canada, in Toronto. So actually, I kind of became an entrepreneur a bit in Toronto, kind of doing some virtual coaching and stuff like that. And I actually heard an immigration commercial on TV when I was in Florida one day that said, do you need a green card? And anyways, the rest is kind of history, because my husband and I went for a consultation with this immigration law firm, and the owner actually hired me to work on a work visa. And it was actually a TN visa at that time. And he was looking for someone to run the practice, not at all. I wasn't a lawyer. I knew nothing about law. my degree was a Bachelor of Arts in Economics. I was more, and then I wound up working in marketing, like strange. But so I got a TN visa. We all came to Florida. This was 2005. I had an H-1B visa. I know you're very familiar with that process. The company did a perm for me. They did a labor certification, but then guess what? The I-140 got denied. So for those business immigration practitioners out there, you know that often why an I-140 gets denied, the business couldn't show the financials that it needed to show. So, but we all wound up getting our green cards anyways through family because my husband's connection. So it all worked out in the end. And then, of course, now we're all here, dual citizens. So here I am working for this immigration law firm for about 5 years, or probably from 2005 to like 2010, to almost 10 years. And I realized that I could do this. I could be an immigration lawyer. I love the business. I love the industry, but I wasn't an attorney. And my law firm that I was working for, the owner, he was actually retiring, and I became an attorney. So I became an attorney in the US, kind of a late second career choice, and then launched my own immigration law practice in 2015, having already had significant experience running an immigration law firm. So I knew the business side, I knew the language, I knew all about the forms, I knew everything. I just didn't have the credentials to practice law, which I enjoyed doing back in 2015 when I launched Heitz Immigration Law in Florida.
You also had your own experience, obviously, in addition to that of working at the practice, which is very helpful.
Exactly. Frankly. Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. And something that really prompted me to want to help others with their immigration cases, because at this law firm that I managed, I saw the worst and the best, right? Like I saw the way things shouldn't be handled, and they disagreed a lot with certain things that were done. It was a super high volume firm back then. With offices in Boca Raton and Fort Lauderdale and Miami. We had 3 branches. We did heavy TV advertising. We had a huge budget. So I learned how not to run an immigration law firm, how I wanted to run my law firm totally differently. And it's interesting because I know you're always interested in how you get into the technology side, right? But in that almost 10 years that I was with that firm, I launched a technology app. It wasn't our own, it was like our own little internal app, kind of doing what Clio did. And I remember now looking back at when Clio was launched, and Clio was launched around the same time that the immigration law firm that I was working for, we hired some students, foreign students from Lynn University, because our home base was Boca Raton, to program a little kind of mini app for us to just use internally, just to do what a lot of these case management systems do, which is track the notes of the case and the statuses of the case, right? Because we were using Excel spreadsheets. And even to this day, I still see lawyers using Excel spreadsheets. And back then, I knew there had to be a better way than this awful spreadsheet, color-coded, which drove everybody nuts. So we had a really cool little app. We named it something, but we never thought of, launching it to anyone else at that time.
Imagine that. It would have been a whole different career trajectory.
Yeah, and then Clio came, and
and the rest is history on that side too.
Yeah. Right.
I hear that. I've heard that in instances just across history, people come up with the same idea around the same time in many different places without ever having spoken to each other. There are a lot of brilliant people who see the landscape and understand what's needed and like take action, right, and build something. And then some of them maybe go out and commercialize it, and others use it internally. Others give up on the idea, but I'm sure there are a million people that are like, I was going to do the Airbnb. I started Airbnb when they started, or whatever, Uber.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A good idea is a good idea. You can't be the only one thought of it, right?
Exactly. If no one else thought about it, would it really be that good of an idea? That's really cool. Exactly. So you did that. Obviously, this was, before the kind of more current boom of immigration tech platforms, or just legal tech platforms that immigration lawyers use. So you launched your own firm, Heitz Immigration. You focus on I guess you still do. You focus mostly on family-based, right? But you do all sorts of
Yeah.
cases, don't you?
Yeah, mostly family based. Because I'm also Canadian, we also do E2s for Canadians or any country for that matter. But mostly family, humanitarian, some detained work as well, especially now. So yeah,
Hmm.
a little
Okay.
bit of business, not much. Like we'll take on the occasional perm or H1B, but not a lot of them.
So let's talk a little bit about your first. I mean, I guess that would maybe was your first kind of venture within the industry, but I want to dig into technology for immigration practitioners, your very awesome Facebook group, which I always plug whenever I can because it's great.
Thank
Um,
you.
how did you come up with that? Or and when did you launch it? Kind of what's a little bit of a background story on it, just so people know.
Yeah, I was already in some Facebook groups at that time. They were really taking off pretty soon after I launched in 2015. I'll never forget one of my colleagues. She told me, Nadine, you've got to join this immigration Facebook group. You know, we all help each other. And it was one of the women's immigration Facebook groups. So I joined that. And then I joined a few others. You know, there's so many of them out there now, right? There's about 4 of them that are really good. And depending on I realized they all had their own kind of focus. There was the women's only group. There was the group that was largely Florida based. And so I was always interested in technology from day one. And I decided that there isn't really a technology focused immigration Facebook group because I love those groups so much. I found them better than I hate to say this, but better than the AILA listservs because the Facebook groups were just more personal, right? You could see the picture of the person and you just felt like you kind of knew who you were talking to. It was already there on your phone app. And so I decided that there was a need for an immigration focused technology Facebook group. And that's how I decided that TIP, which stands for Technology for Immigration Practitioners. I didn't want to say lawyers because there are, I didn't want to leave out Canadian immigration practitioners. Canada does have a legal process where you can be, as you know, an immigration practitioner without being a lawyer. It's a very rigorous education and exam that you have to go through. It's no joke. I was going to do it a while back, and then I just thought, oh God, this is too much. I did the schooling and everything, and I didn't go for the exam. It was during COVID. But so, we do have some Canadian members as well. But yeah, it took off. We have, I think, about 2,300 members across the country now. I am very selective with who I admit. I will occasionally admit a non-lawyer by special request or a special vendor that I trust, but I tend not to allow non-lawyers to be admitted.
So if you're a vendor and you want to get into the group, go to law school is
Yeah.
that's the conclusion.
Yeah.
I mean, that would show some real commitment. If they go to law
Right.
school just to get into your Facebook group, I think they
Right.
deserve to get in.
Right. Yeah, because there are some, as you know, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I'm
James
one of
Pittman
them.
from DoggAwise is in my group. You're in my group. Yeah, I can't
Yeah.
say no. You're lawyers. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's great. So, and the group has really taken off, and as somebody who's in it, and I try to be whenever I'm on Facebook, I try to be as active as I can. People ask about anything from broadly, hey, who's using what case management systems and why? I
Oh,
mean, very
favorite
broadly,
question.
which of course has been answered a million times, but it is what it is. But also very specific ones. There, people ask about what printer do you use, or how do you feel about this privacy policy for ChatGPT? Somebody posted about that today. So
Exactly.
there's a lot of really good chatter, and I think people are quite helpful, and people will even vent or complain, and I think that usually in a very professional way, but I think it's nice because people can sort of be honest and say, here's an issue that I had with this product, and then someone else will come in and defend the product. And you do get to see multiple sides, which is great. Because when you're deciding, and look, I'm a vendor, so I get it. Does Laborless have problems? I mean, I don't know. No one's told me about them, but probably, but really, right? Every tool has pluses and minuses for different people. If a potential client comes to me, I will only focus on the positives. That's always going to be the case for any company. Or if
Yeah.
you talk to somebody who doesn't like a product, they'll really kind of focus on the negatives. What I like about the group is that you have people saying, for example, let's just use DocketWise. They're a sponsor of the show, and you're a user of DocketWise, and everyone talks about them.
Mhm.
Somebody might like DocketWise, somebody might not like DocketWise, and you have folks coming in and explaining why they feel the way they do. And the person who asked the original question now has more information, and they can make a decision and say, okay, I hear what you didn't like about it, but I don't mind that so much. So I'll deal
Right.
with the thing you don't like, but I really like that feature that the person who loves DocketWise said it has. So I'm going to go with DocketWise, for example.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Absolutely. And I love that too. And I also love that I can, just get a really good idea of what people are interested in and help others. And my first suggestion is always when people do post things like, oh, I hate this XYZ program. It's horrible. It's blah, blah, blah. And I had this big problem and I did this and this. Does anyone know how to solve it? And my first question is, yeah, sure. Maybe someone knows how to solve it, had that problem, but have you reached out to the vendor? Have you told them? Have you sent an urgent message? Because they want to know, you as a vendor and me now as a vendor too, we want to know when things are going wrong, right? And sometimes you don't think about that. Sometimes you may think, oh, they're too big, or, oh, they never reply. Well, go ahead and do it anyways, right? And if they don't reply, then bug them, keep bugging them, escalate it, put it in the group. Maybe the vendor will notice.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I think people sometimes, they also may not want to have a confrontation. It's easier to vent to somebody else than to go to the person or company that you're unhappy with and tell them directly, this is what I don't like. I mean, honestly, people, it's not a comfortable conversation sometimes. And some people are nervous or unequipped maybe to do it. And so it's easier to just avoid the problem, vent to somebody else, and then eventually just drop the program altogether. I agree with you 100%. We as vendors, we want to hear it. In fact, usually we don't know that a problem exists because we're not using it the same way. Like, we test it as much as possible, but it's fascinating to me, from a laborless perspective. I always thought we're very narrow, LCA, public access file management automation. That's so specific.
Mm-hmm.
How many possible ways can a firm do that, that isn't really accounted for in our testing and, process? And turns out that the answer is a ton. People use things in such different, interesting ways, that you just will never know unless you hear from them. So I that's really good feedback and really good advice. Okay, so out of the outgrowth of this page, of course, and it sounds like you did a little bit of this, I guess from early on in your career in general, came coaching. So folks naturally reach out to you and say, Nadine, you clearly have used a ton of different tools. You have a lot of opinions, and I just don't have the time or don't feel comfortable or whatever. Can you just speed up my knowledge around what tools I should use or potentially use for my firm? So how did that come about? And I guess, can you talk a little bit about what's the landscape of of coaching immigration lawyers, especially around technology?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. Out of that group came the need for my coaching business, which is I do offer one-on-one coaching sessions. You can go to my website, not the Caseflow website. We do offer actually a free demo. We'll talk about Caseflow a bit after, but my website is tiplawyers with an S.com, tiplawyers.com. So that's the website for the Facebook group where you can go and book a one-on-one coaching session with me. And the need for that is, like you said, just to have a conversation with me, like, okay, tell me what you're using. Let's see if there's any overlaps. Let's see what I can recommend. And the more and more I did these sessions and everyone wants to know, well, what are you using? What are you doing? Right. And I okay, well, here's what I'm doing. Oh, well, I want that. I want that. I want that. So I realized that, especially since I started using Monday, that when I told them, well, I'm using Monday, it's really cool. And look, I'll show you, blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, oh my God, I want that. But Nadine, I don't want to set it up. I can't take I can't take a year like you and just, create it and set it up. So can you set it up for me? So there started my business for setting up Monday on people's Monday account, which then in the beginning was named Tipsy. Again, taking the TIP letters. I think you and I had a funny conversation about that once. Remember when I was looking for the name?
Yep,
An
I do.
acronym. Thanks to you. And that was kind of cute. So we had Tipsy, we had several immigration lawyer clients, and now we have rebranded about a year ago to Caseflow. So I still do the coaching, because there are still people who want that one-on-one, or maybe they're struggling with an app that I have used, because like you said, I've used almost all of them at some point in my career since 2015. I love experimenting. I'm still always learning and trying out new things. So.
I am happy that I love Tipsy. I think it's a really funny, I think it's a cute name, but if you're going to go sort of broader with it.
Yeah, we need something a little more serious.
It has some connotations to it that maybe
it does. Yeah.
We don't need as lawyers.
We don't need to be tipsy.
Yeah, there are enough lawyer jokes to go around. We don't need to add more ones around alcohol.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's I love that. I also, for me, GMI Rocket kind of came out organically as well. I was very active on LinkedIn, and people started reaching out to me and saying, hey, I like your content. Can you maybe just answer some questions, or can you help me with this one article or this one post? And similarly, I just kind of realized that there's a demand for people who see the value in something, but they're incredibly busy immigration lawyers, and the last thing they want to do is spend their time experimenting and learning on their own. And it's fascinating because I'm not the expert. I don't work at LinkedIn, right? I learned by being on the platform anymore, as much as possible. But I think the idea behind coaching is not that the person who's coaching you has to be some sort of foremost, genius or something. They just have to have had some experience that you don't have, and you want to get to where they are faster. And I really like it. Took me a while to wrap my head around that, because I was always really kind of skittish about saying, oh, I coach people. I don't know. It sounded strange to me. Who am I, right, to coach people?
Yeah.
And I did, I listened to enough people. The one thing that really stuck with me, maybe this will stick with you as well, when they talked about how they became a coach, or two things. One thing is, sometimes people think that a coach should be somebody who's, extremely experienced, like very far ahead in their career, very successful. But oftentimes they're so removed from where you might be, especially if you're in early stages of building a practice or whatever. They don't remember the tactical things they did when they were at your stage, and they're going to have trouble actually helping you. They might give you really big, wise kind of, in wisdom, right? But in terms of tactical steps, right, and practical information, it's really hard to go. So you really only have to be a couple. In fact, it's probably potentially better to only be a few steps ahead of the person you're coaching, so you can just tell them, here are the specific decisions I made to get to where I am today, and I just made them, so they're very fresh on my mind. So I like that idea, and I also like the idea of thinking about coaching as kind of compressing time. So what took you 2 years to figure out, you can compress into maybe 4 weeks with a few calls and a few follow-ups with somebody. And like, what a blessing to be able to do that. And, that has value to it. So I like that. I'm talking through this because I think a lot of professionals don't want to get coaching for whatever reason. They think that oh, I can figure it all out. I'm sure you can, but the point is we can help you figure it out very, very quickly versus you being able to do it yourself. Sure, you can probably do it just as well, but it's going to take you much longer. So do you want to speed up that process?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And because I'm still in the industry, I practice immigration law every day. I have my practice. I am a solo attorney. I'm the only attorney, but I do have 3 staff and another virtual. So I know what immigration lawyers are doing. I feel like I know what they need. I know what they want. Through my group and through the coaching, I've learned so much from everyone else too on what their pain points are. And many of us face the same pain points, right? So, I think that helps because I can be relevant to them being in the industry myself.
Yeah, and frankly, for people who are listening, whether immigration lawyers or not, you can also it's a really nice little. I mean, I can call it a side business. I mean, if you find that you're really good at something and you have a knack for maybe teaching others, right? Have some patience and whatnot. There are lots of people who coach in our industry that aren't official coaches. They just have a few lawyers who they help on a regular basis. They make a little bit of money off of it, and they can sort of share what they've learned. So yeah, I just wanted to go off on that little tangent because I think it's a really, you're one of the few coaches I think in the space, at least that I'm aware of. So I wanted to talk about that. So I now I want to get to the interesting part. Okay. The really interesting part. Case flow. You kind of mentioned it. You started tinkering with Monday.com. And you kind of built something out and Tipsy, and then it became case flow.
Right.
My question to you, you skipped for me, the really important question. How did you come across Monday.com, and why did you start thinking about it as a potential, immigration case management tool?
Right. Well, it's interesting because I knew about Monday, but I started using it in early 2020. Prior to that, I knew it existed, but I never really decided to, do anything with it. So I actually started using it during COVID, and I started using it more as a task management tool because when we were going through COVID, we were all scattered all over the place, right? So I was at home. Some of my staff were, one person was at the office and that. So I started using Monday and really just to manage my tasks. And I realized soon that it could be more than that. It could be a CRM, customer relationship management system. It could be a case management system, not only manage tasks of what the staff are doing at any given time, but the entire case structure of where your cases are in all the relevant stages. And at the time, I think I was using Practice Panther for case management. Prior to that, I had used Clio. Prior to that, I had used e-immigration. Prior to that, I had used literally almost everything that existed. From about 2015, from when I launched, to 2020, for 5 years, I was small enough in my business that it wasn't a problem to keep switching, right? Like when you have 1,000 cases, you don't want to keep switching every 6 months, right? But when you have, 10, 20, 50, maybe 100, it's okay. I'll switch because I kept looking for that case management system that gives you everything. And to this day, we still get people on the group saying, I just want one system. What is it, to give me everything? And there are some systems out there that try to give you everything. I know that even DocketWise started with immigration forms and they added on other features. Camp Legal is another one that added on lots of other features. And, even Clio, they bought the other company, remember, to give them the CRM component of Clio. So they now have Clio Grow and Clio Management. So I know that that desire exists, but I realized that Monday could be that one system that gave me everything because it can so easily integrate with some of my other favorite apps that I don't want to give up, like Calendly. I love Calendly, and none of the internal case management systems have a calendar feature that I think is good enough, right? Calendly is the expert. To me, it's the gold standard. Acuity is similar, and I know there's others out there. Sometimes it's a preference. Same with, my intake form. I love JotForm. It's, again, to me, a gold standard for getting an initial intake from my client before they come to me for the consultation. So Monday, I realized, could be that dream system where everything could feed into it, and Monday can be the hub and talk to these other apps back and forth. So it was 2020 that I started using Monday, and then through my coaching, started offering my own setup services on other people's Monday accounts. But then I realized I kind of needed a business partner, and that's a whole nother story. But that's kind of how I started with Monday.
Yeah, and just so people know, Monday.com was and is basically a kind of a task management tool. Because it allows you
management. I would call it a project
tool.
management. Yeah,
it's a project management tool. It allows you to assign things to people, track their status. I mean, it has almost like an Excel spreadsheet look to it fundamentally, because it's tables, but there are a lot. I use it too. It's a really, I mean, it basically really transformed my business from being, spreadsheets to something dynamic where team members can log in. They have their own login, and they, task is done or a task needs my attention, and I could set deadlines and notes. I mean,
and
it's
you can
really,
talk
really
to each
tool.
other. You can, integrate your emails. Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, it's a great tool. So, but what was interesting to me about that is you had this sort of outside of the box thinking to say, well, how far can I push this thing that isn't really meant to be an immigration case management platform, but it has the ability, it has the potential for it. I just have to really kind of put my head down and focus and figure out a way to do this. And you did. I mean, that's that's the value.
And sometimes, timing is everything in life, right? Like I said, it was early 2020 when COVID started, and I wasn't that busy anymore with my law firm. We were still, as lawyers, running our firms through COVID, but I had the time to kind of tinker around with it. So I kind of designed the entire structure of what today is case flow, meaning the structure of the boards and the way that the boards function and the categories in the group, and the way that I categorized it by, like, for example, putting all the USCIS cases in one board, all the consular processing cases in another board. But I soon realized I didn't have the technological ability to template this and give it to other lawyers in an efficient manner, so that's when I found my business partner, Keenan, who is from, his company name is WorkyFlow. And the rest is kind of history, because he took what I created and he was the expert. He was already a Monday expert. He was already a Monday certified partner, building Monday platforms for others in all kinds of industries, had not really worked in the legal space before. But we teamed up and we really connected. And to this day, he's still my business partner and has just taken what I created to a whole new level. So sometimes you have to realize your limitations. Like I say to other immigration lawyers, right? You can do so much, but sometimes you need to reach out to someone else, whether it's for coaching, whether it's for customization of your systems. Don't be afraid to realize what limitations you have and seek guidance to make it a million times better.
And by the way, when people come to terms with the fact that reaching out to others for help could be an option, and you start doing it, you become obsessed with it, because you realize that you can find people who are better than you and just make your life so much easier. And also hire them along the, pay them something, and it helps support them.
I
think it makes your life so much. I mean, something even as simple as, like, think about renovating your apartment. I mean, can you renovate it on your own? I mean, perhaps, but would you do it rather than paying someone who does it, all the time? Of course not, because it doesn't make sense. It's the same concept. So before we move forward, I do want to take one quick pause just to say thank you to the second sponsor of the show, which is CaseBlink, our friends at CaseBlink. So CaseBlink is an AI platform that's actually, it's part of this new wave of all these AI tools that have been coming out. And my perspective is these tools are really transforming immigration practice, and CaseBlink is really at, one of the top, built by an immigration attorney, technologist, and an AI scientist together on the founding team. They actually started with kind of creating these complex writing heavy cases. So EB2 NIWs, EB1s, O1s, even L1s. I mean, they sort of took on the writing aspect of it. And organize documents and assemble documents and help put together packets. They built a studio feature, which then, as it grew, they built a studio feature that allows immigration lawyers to kind of customize things to their voice, and really speed up intake and speed up drafting and things. And then actually most recently, which is why kind of they're a sponsor here, very exciting, they rolled out AI-powered forms too. And workflows. So they're it's interesting because they are starting to really go and really take AI as the foundational technology and expand beyond just drafting, and really kind of they're supporting family-based cases as well, and humanitarian cases, obviously, in addition to all the employment-based cases they started out with. They've got some great investors behind them and some big law firms. So if you're interested in AI, anybody who's listening or watching, and maybe you don't know what tool to use, check out CaseBlink. That's one to check out. Their website is caseblink.com, or obviously click on the link in the show notes. So thank you to them for also supporting the show. Okay, so you partnered with Keenan. You guys built out your Monday kind of instance to your specifications and to how it's interesting for you. I guess my question to you would be, in addition to that, how did you start? It's one thing to build it for yourself. There actually are a number of firms that have their own in-house tools. Over the years, they built it one way or another. But they don't all turn them into a business. So sort of what prompted you to recognize, I guess, that there's a demand and a need for what you've built specifically, and that there could be a market for it?
Right. Like I was saying, it was really through my coaching, because I would tell people what I was using and show them, and then they wanted it, but didn't want to set it up themselves. Because, as you know, with monday.com, you open it up and it's kind of a clean slate, right? You've got to build your board. You've got to label your columns. You've got to label all the things. And then what we created with Keenan was all of the interactions and the automations and the integrations and clicking buttons so that this happens and that happens and this connects with that. So nobody really wanted to do that themselves, even though they probably could to a certain degree, and maybe they could hire their own person on Upwork or whatever, but I already invented it, so they just wanted it straight out from me. And I knew they would, of course, want to have that quickly and have it in an efficient way, which is how Keenan helped me. And that's how I started with the Tipsy business, which was, I was already working with Keenan at that time, but we were doing it in a way that was very kind of painstakingly, very one-on-one, and not really templated out as much as it needed to be. And we also kind of made the mistake early on of giving people everything, like, here's the entire thing with all these fancy customizations. And it was a bit overwhelming, and it took so much time to set up. So we decided that we needed something that was more streamlined, that we could set up more quickly on their account, that gave them all the basics. And that's what Caseflow is. It's pretty well just the same as Tipsy, but it doesn't have some of the integrations with the third-party apps. Once you have Caseflow, we set it up, like you just say, yes, I want to have Caseflow. You sign up for your Monday account. We send you a link that you sign up for with Monday, and then we put Caseflow on your Monday account. So you're owning it now. You're managing it. It's yours, right? That's the beauty of Monday. It's kind of like you manage it. You can export your cases somewhere else. You're not always relying on another company to say, oh, if I want to move my cases to another software, I have to pay you $2,000 or whatever to give me everything. You own it. It's in your Monday account. But now, if you want some of those fancy integrations, like maybe you want that Calendly integration, or maybe you want that Jotform integration, or PandaDoc for e-signing contracts, or Stripe because you can accept payments through Monday, and even Smith AI reception services messages can go into your Monday system. Like, the amount of integrations are endless. And we can set those up for you. Some of them we can set up very quickly because we've done them before. Something we've never done before, we will experiment and let you know if it can be done. So this way you get a true out-of-the-box case management system from day one that you could just use, but you have the ability to also work with me, my company, myself and Keenan, to customize further. So that's why it's kind of different from others.
And that's what I was going to say. What's cool about it is you can then customize it further on your own. So you're giving them
on your own. You can totally hire someone yourself. There's tons of people, but when you say on your own, yes, totally on your own.
What I meant to say was that you control the customization. I mean, they'll work with you to do it, but you can sort of, because I say this as somebody who, look, I run a software business, but it's not, we've built a custom, software that is, it follows a specific process, and the customization has to go through us. But the thing is that just because you want something, doesn't, and I don't mean this in a bad way, if any clients are listening, we always want people's feedback, and we build features based on what folks want. But typically the way it works in the software business is you get some requests for a feature, and then you have to build it in a way that tries to meet as many people's needs as possible, but that also doesn't break the software, right? I mean, there are a lot of different variables that come into play when you say, oh, well, I love this, but can it also look a little bit like this? And can you add a drop down here, or can you add another field to the
but
dashboard?
Guess what? With Monday, there are so many things, like you just said, that you actually can do yourself very easily. If you don't like the colors, if you don't like the names of the columns, if you want to add new columns, and that's the beauty of Monday. You don't need me, and I don't want you to need me or my company or anyone else to do some simple integrations, because the beauty is that when we get a change in the law and suddenly now you have to add another column in your board because you want to track the clients that are affected by this new law, you can just quickly, in a minute, let me add a column. Let me decide, is it a drop down? Is it a checkbox? Whatever. Like, that's the beauty of Monday. It can be customized by you. Now, if you want fancier stuff, sure, then you're probably going to want to hire my company. But we don't want you to feel like, every little thing you've got to pay somebody to do. Maybe there's someone on your team that is a little tech savvy, and they can be the Monday person to do some of these simple things that honestly anybody can do.
Exactly. I think it's really good for people to know, especially in our industry, the difference between these different approaches to software, right? Like software that's built on top of a platform such as Monday that's incredibly customizable versus specialized software like Laborless or many others that are specifically built for something. And by the way, there's space for both, right? Because both exist. But that's what I really am interested. That's what's interesting to me about what you've built is it's the less common approach. Cool. So what have you, how does it work today? I mean, we talked a lot about what it is and sort of the value that it brings, but maybe can you walk me through a little bit about what can I expect as an immigration lawyer if I say, yeah, this sounds cool. Maybe I'm using a different case management platform, or maybe I'm using one and I want to see if there's a way to supplement it. What do you say to immigration lawyers who could be potentially interested in trying out CaseFlow?
Right. So I say to them, CaseFlow, think of it as your way of managing all your consultations, your leads, as we call them in CRM language, right? You get a new potential client calling you, that's a lead. It can automatically go into your Monday system. You can manage the flow of that potential client from when they first arrive to calling you, through consultation, taking notes, and all of that. And then there's a lot of automations that you can set up very easily. So CaseFlow does come with a full CRM, customer relationship management system. And then the nice thing is that once they become a client, if they become a client, they will move into one of the case management boards in CaseFlow. So we have a USCIS board where we house all those cases that go through USCIS. We have a consular processing board, we have a FOIA board, and we have an EOIR court board. So it comes with these 4 core boards with all of the columns labeled for you, everything done so that you don't have to create all those labels and all the movement of the integration between, you just click a button and tell it case signed up, bang, it goes into the USCIS correct board. And then it has a future case board. So once they are finished with you and you want to get them back in 2 years or 5 years for their future naturalization, it moves into the future case board, and it's all automated, where they automatically get an email from you at a certain advanced time reminding them to come back to you. We have a USCIS receipt tracker board that you get with it as well. So similar to what some other vendors offer, you just enter the USCIS receipt when you get it, and Monday will notify you when the case status changes with USCIS. We even have a free, we call it a free template board that you can make yourself and copy and duplicate. Like, let's say you are an attorney that does tons of perms, right? Now, we don't have a perm board because that's a specific case type. But if you feel like you do so many perms and you want its own board just for that, think of a board as an Excel sheet, right?
Mhm.
With rows and columns. So you could have a board just for any case type that maybe you do a lot of. SIJ, special immigrant juvenile cases that require family court. I've had some attorneys set up even a family court board. Some immigration attorneys do a little family law or a little criminal on the side. They could use one of those free boards that we've customized with columns that you can label, but the framework is there. They could use that. So you get a lot of functionality to run your CRM, your leads, your cases, communicate with all of your team members within the case. You can even save files to the case. Monday comes with email tracking automatically. So you can automatically write emails from Monday, but you don't have to. If you use Gmail or Outlook, you can write it from there, and the email is automatically tracked in the Monday case. So there's a lot of really cool features that you get just with CaseFlow. And then the add-on integrations are, of course, optional. Keys for terms. I just got to go ahead, Roman. I just got to grab a key for somebody here.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that's awesome. And actually, I didn't know, because I don't think I've ever. I mean, I've never used it, right? Since I don't practice.
Right,
so,
right.
Which thank you for painting that full picture. So I wanted to ask you, because I think again, CaseFlow is slightly unique within the landscape of immigration, and I think people may not know what to expect. So I think that paints a really nice picture. So what can you say, like, what are you working on now? Because Monday is such a big, broad platform. In a sense, you can kind of do anything. But can you share, maybe you're working on something now, maybe there's some things that are interesting to you that you think about building?
We are working on some really cool integrations. I mentioned many already that we've done for myself. I'm kind of the guinea pig always, right? I test it out first, make sure it works, and we launch it. But we have a lot of integrations that we've already done, and we're working on more. For example, we've talked to LawPay, and we actually have an agreement that we can do a LawPay integration. Many attorneys need to put their money into their trust account first. Some can go right into operating. For those that can put their money in operating, we recommend Stripe as an integration with Monday, because Stripe is such a phenomenal open API. That's the thing you got to know, is we can build any integration for you as long as that company has what they call an open API, right? And you know what that means. Maybe you can explain better than me, but it's kind of like the back end, that we can get into their back end and coordinate the back and forth sharing of certain data. And some APIs are better than others. So Stripe is phenomenal. Like, I can do my entire invoicing complete with automations to automatically charge clients with their cards on file. I can create my contract from within Monday. All the invoicing is through Monday, with Stripe running in the background, with Panadoc running in the background for the contract e-signing. So there's all kinds of cool things you can do. But some of the ones we are working on, we've also talked to DocketWise. We can build a basic DocketWise integration for you, because here's the thing. If you're using CaseFlow, you're probably still going to want to use an app for the immigration forms. We are not an immigration forms platform. And honestly, I don't think I want to be, because that is a whole animal in itself. Maybe someday we've thought about it and looked at it and looked at some vendors, but right now, the best way to go, honestly, is to use your favorite vendor for forms, whether it's DocketWise or somebody else, and we can integrate that. But we've also talked to DocketWise to make the integration a little bit more better than what we can do just without their agreement. So, we're in talks with DocketWise, and I mentioned the USCIS receipt tracker app, which is really phenomenal, and we are working to make that even better. And so, and then we are also looking at evolving into other areas of law, not just immigration, because we have had a lot of questions from, whether it's a family law attorney or maybe personal injury. Every industry has kind of their own little niche, right? Like, I know personal injury has some software that is really good for them. I know that estate planning, they have something called, what's it called? Something like wealth management, or they have some app that a lot of them use. There are some other good technology groups that are more for all attorneys, not just immigration. So I do sometimes realize that, there are specific softwares for certain industries, but Monday there could be case flow for immigration, case flow for family law, case flow so that's kind of where we're looking to head.
That's really exciting. And that sort of level of organic growth is great. You're doing this sort of in addition to running your practice. So it's not like you have big investors sort of breathing down your neck.
Right.
You have to expand into personal injury. You're taking it as it comes in a way that's organic, in a way that's going to ensure that you build. And I mean, I think that's a really great way to build a business. So
I'm excited to say that we're going to be at AILA National. First time case flow will be there.
That's right. Thank you for reminding me. I forgot to ask you about that.
Yeah.
So for anybody who's watching or listening to this live, June 18th through the 21st in Denver, Colorado is this year's AILA annual conference. I will be there. I'll have a booth, and you will be there, Nadine, and you will have a booth. So it's a great conference. It's I think it's record numbers this year. I think there are 3,000, over 3,000, like a good amount over 3,000 people in attendance. So I'm very,
no, it's going to be really good. Yeah.
So,
and we do offer free demos for case flow. If you could, you could even book one now if you want to. case-flow.com. We have to get the dash. The other domain name was taken. So case-flow.com. You can book a free demo. We'll do a 30-minute demo to show it to you, and then you can decide if it's something you want. We're going to have a very cool contest at AILA National. We're going to have some nice giveaways. So yeah, definitely check us out.
Awesome. So I guess before we go here, I wanted to ask you just kind of maybe a reflective question to end the show. You're constantly building new businesses, and you've been practicing law for a number of years, but you're restless in the best way possible, and you're building a whole bunch of things on the side. What's some advice that you're currently using as you continue to build your career? So not necessarily advice that you've picked up along the way that you give to others, but that's relevant to you right now.
Okay, that's a really good question. I think what's relevant to me right now is you have to realize your limitations on how much you can do. I'm the type of person that has, all kinds of ideas, and I want to, if I could do it, I would probably have, 5 businesses going on. But, and I recognize that you can outsource and you can hire others to help you. But, in the beginning, you're still the driving force. So I think staying focused right now, my focus is case flow and my law practice. I am looking at another business in the future, but it's a whole separate, it's still related to lawyers and immigration law, but it's a different kind of an app totally. As soon as I flesh that out, I'll love to come on and talk about that. But, right now my focus is case flow. As case flow grows, we can add to our team. We can have more. I'm still doing most of the demos. If you book a demo, it's probably going to be with me right now, as we are, kind of 1 year in now to case flow and really still in our startup phase of the rebranding from Tipsy. So once we get more people on case flow on our team, I can focus on some other things. So I think recognizing your limits, I still want to enjoy my weekends with my family. I am not going to be, working day and night. Maybe my younger self might have done that, but at my stage in my life, my kids are young adults, and I want to relax. I enjoy traveling. It seems like every month I'm going somewhere else, whether it's for work or for vacation. I want to spend time in Canada still. We still have family there. So, realize your limitations, enjoy your life, but do it smartly, I think. Don't stress yourself out.
I love that. And honestly, that's timeless advice at any stage of one's business or career. Well, Nadine, thank you. This was really wonderful. I am excited about, the growth of CaseFlow to date, and definitely looking forward to seeing you in Denver and kind of
and your comedy show.
That's right. Yeah, there's going to be a comedy show. So I'm excited for that. Thank you I will see you there. But in the meantime, I definitely encourage folks to check you out. case-flow.com is the website. And of course, they can follow you across social media. And if you're an immigration practitioner, join the TIP Facebook group. Just go to Facebook and type in technology for immigration practitioners.
TIP,
and try to apply to join for the group. It's a great resource. So thank you, Nadine, for everything you do. This is a wonderful conversation. Appreciate it. And I'll see you soon.
See you soon. Thanks, Roman. Take care.
Thank you. Awesome. What a great conversation. Thank you, everybody. I just want to say thank you, of course, most importantly, again, to our main sponsor, DocketWise, for making this show possible and making these conversations possible. So for anyone who missed it in the beginning, DocketWise is an all-in-one immigration case management platform with best-in-class immigration forms, customizable questionnaires in a number of different languages, industry-leading integrations, including with CaseFlow that they're working on, great customer service, a ton of value and resources that they have, many of which are free to the immigration industry to help you build out your practice. And of course, I'm grateful for their support across the board for this show and for lots of other things with the immigration space. So if you're an immigration attorney or even an in-house team, they've branched into business immigration and they do have corporate clients, please do check them out, www.docketwise.com, or click on the link in the show notes. So thank you to DocketWise. Really wonderful conversation with Nadine. Thank you to her and CaseFlow, and thank you to everybody who has tuned in and is listening live or as a recording. So thanks, everybody. See you all next week for another episode of the show. And in the meantime, have a wonderful weekend and stay safe. Peace out.